Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be my September reads video, and I want to start out by saying that I did not read that many books this month. I read one on my Kindle, one physical book, and then 2 audiobooks, because I think it's just because I read so many books the last few months that I was kind of in a reading slump and I didn't really want to read anything. But I got 4 in, so which has technically been my goal, at least 4 every month for the year. So we'll talk about the 4 books that I read / listened to. So the first book I read was on Kindle Unlimited. So if you do have Kindle Unlimited, go ahead and check that out. And if you have seen any of my previous book review videos, this should not come as a surprise at all. But it was indeed a Coho book. So, and it was Heartbones by Colleen Hoover. So the summary is, life and a dismal last name are the only 2 things Bea's parents ever gave her. Forced to carve her own path alone, Bea is well on her way to bigger and better things, but thanks to no one but herself. With only 2 short months separating her from the future she's built from herself and the past she desperately wants to leave behind, an unexpected death leaves Bea with no place to go during the interim. Forced to call her last resort, Bea has no other option than to spend the remainder of her summer on a peninsula in Texas with a father she barely knows. Bea's plan is to keep her head down and let the summer slip by seamlessly, but her new neighbor, Samson, throws a wrench in that plan. Samson and Bea have nothing in common on the surface. She comes from a life of poverty and neglect, and he comes from a family of wealth and privilege. But one thing they do have in common is that they're drawn to sad things, which means they're drawn to each other. With an almost immediate connection too intense for them to continue denying, Bea and Samson agreed to stay in the shallow end of a summer fling. What Bea doesn't realize is that a rip current is coming and it's about to drag her heart out to sea. I didn't see the twist that was coming in the story, honestly. So I really enjoyed it. And then this book, I feel like, had a lot of good one-liners in it, but one of my favorite ones is a quote that says, "Home still feels like a mythical place I've been searching for my whole life," which I just gets you right in the feels, you know what I mean? So yeah, so that was the first book I read for the month. So the second and third books that I read / listened to, however you want to call it, were on Audible, and the first one is called Thank You for Listening by Julia Whelan, and it was kind of like an autobiography, but not an autobiography because she does indeed work in the audiobook world, but it wasn't necessarily her story she was telling. For Swanee Chester, being an audiobook narrator is a long way from her old dreams, but the days of being a star on film sets are long behind her. She's found success and satisfaction from the inside of a sound booth, and it allows her to care for her beloved ailing grandmother. When she arrives in Las Vegas last minute for a book convention, Swanee unexpectedly spends a whirlwind night with a charming stranger. On her return home, Swanee discovers one of the world's most beloved romance novelists wanting to perform her last book with Brock McKnight, the industry's hottest, most secretive voice. Swanee doesn't buy what romance novels are selling, not after her own dreams were tragically cut short, and she stopped narrating them years ago. But her admiration of the late author and the opportunity to get her grandmother more help makes her decision for her. As Swanee begins to work on the book, she resurrects her old romance pseudonym as she and Brock forge a real connection. Soon she is dreaming again, but secrets are revealed and the realities of life come crashing down around her once more. If she can learn to risk everything for desires she has long buried, she will discover a world of intimacy and acceptance she never believed would be hers. I don't know why I can't read today, guys. So like I said, Julia Whelan does work in the audiobook world, so I did like it, but it was a little long in my opinion. It was an 11-hour and 16-minute audiobook. It is narrated by Julia Whelan, and I do have to say that the voices that she does in this book are fantastic, and how she can just switch her voice into so many characters is actually admirable, because I I could never. Like I said, I did like the book, but I just wish it was a little bit shorter, mostly because my attention span with audiobooks, like if I'm physically reading a book, I have a longer attention span, but if I'm listening to a book, then I have a shorter one. So it was a good book, but I just wished it was a little bit shorter. So the next one that I read was, or listened to several times. The next one that I listened to was I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette Mccurdy. And for those of you who didn't grow up in the early 2000s, Jeanette Mccurdy was a child actor that starred on Nickelodeon. And she kind of fell off the face of the earth after a while, and then resurfaced this year when she released her book. It basically just talks about how Jeanette had her first acting audition when she was 6 years old, and she never really wanted to be an actress. It was always her mother's dream, but she kind of did it to satisfy her mother. And then at 11 years old, her mother taught her calorie restriction and basically applauded Jeanette for being anorexic. And until she went to therapy in her 20s, she suffered from various eating disorders, which is always a very sad thing to see. And her relationship with her mother was always very unhealthy. Her mother was emotionally, physically, and sexually abusive towards her. So those are some trigger warnings if, you know, that's something that's going to bother you while you're reading it. It was a very sad story, and obviously it took for her mom dying and her going to therapy and working all this stuff out for her to be comfortable with talking about it, hence the title, I'm Glad My Mom Died. And I know a lot of people were like really pissed off at the title, but she has a lot of dark humor in this book, and I think that the title is one of those things. It's the dark humor that she has. But yeah, it always makes me sad to hear all these child actor stories when they grow up and they tell their version of it and like what happened, because it's like you just see them playing this happy little character on TV, and there's so much going on behind closed doors. So I'm glad that Jeanette told her story and that she got the help that she needed, and now she is healthy and thriving, which is all that we can ask for. And then the last book was my book of the month read, and it's Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Bourne. And I think this is what snapped me out of my reading slump, because I took forever to pick it up because, like I said, I just didn't want to read anything. But once I started reading it, it was actually very interesting. So it says, Billy, Mary, Alice, Helen, and Natalie have worked for the museum, an elite network of assassins, for 40 years. Now their talents are considered old school, and no one appreciates what they have to offer in an age that relies more on technology than people skills. When the foursome is sent on an all-expensive paid vacation to mark their retirement, they are targeted by one of their own. Only the board, the top-level members of the museum, can order the termination of field agents, and the women realize they've been marked for death. Not to get out alive, they have to turn against their own organization, relying on experience and one another to get the job done, knowing that working together is the secret to their survival. They're about to teach the board what it means to really be a woman and a killer of a certain age. So, it was a very good book. I couldn't put it down. I was actually like putting my kids to sleep and like hiding under one of their blankets using my light on my phone to like finish reading it. It got very good, and it just shows how badass women can be. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I can't think of any like trigger warnings unless you don't like violence. If you don't like violence or guns or blood or like anything like that, then don't read this book. But other than that, I definitely gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and it was a good read. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I will promise will have more books to talk about for the month of October, because one, I've already started an audiobook, and it's October 1st, and I'm halfway through it. And then Colleen Hoover's It Starts With Us book comes out this month, and I'm super excited for that. It comes out on the 18th. So, and I already picked my new book of the month, so there's 3 books right there that I already know for sure I'm going to be reading. So, next month's might be a little more chattier, but thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.